A Roman soldier's first battle began long before the clash itself, often in the uneasy quiet of a camp set on foreign ground. The routines of discipline attempted to steady men facing an unknown test. Most were not hardened veterans, but recruits who had marched for weeks under the weight of armor, shield, and expectation, learning to move as part of a unit, to obey without hesitation, and to trust the formation more than their own instincts. Yet nothing in training could fully replicate the tension of standing in formation with a real enemy across the field, visible and waiting. As the army formed up at dawn, the new soldier would feel the compression of ranks around him, shield edges overlapping. The tight geometry of the line left little space for individual movement. His senses were sharpened by the sounds of preparation, the scrape of metal, the muted voices of officers issuing final instructions, and the low hum of anticipation that spread through the ranks like a current. He would be positioned according to the army's structure, not his own preference, placed among others in his cohort, where cohesion mattered more than courage alone, and where breaking formation was more dangerous than facing the enemy directly. As the moment of advance approached, the soldier would experience a mix of fear and focus. There was the realization that survival depended not on personal heroics, but on maintaining order within chaos, on holding his place as the line moved forward in measured steps, guided by commands that had been drilled into him repeatedly. When the signal came to engage, the transition from stillness to motion would be immediate and controlled. The line advanced with shields raised, absorbing the first wave of missiles, arrows, stones, javelins, each impact a sharp reminder of vulnerability despite the protection of armor and formation. For a first-time soldier, this phase could be disorienting. The noise intensified rapidly, the air filled with movement and impact. The clear instructions of training now competed with instinctive reactions to danger. As the distance closed, he would prepare to use his own weapons, gripping his javelin with practiced technique, waiting for the moment to throw not individually, but as part of a coordinated action. The release was timed to disrupt the enemy's advance and weaken their formation before close combat began. The throwing of the javelin marked a shift in the experience, from anticipation to direct confrontation. The soldier then drew his short sword and braced for the physical engagement that followed, stepping forward with the line into close quarters where visibility was limited and movement restricted. The press of bodies and shields created a confined and intense environment. In this phase, the soldier's training became critical, guiding his actions almost automatically. He was taught to thrust rather than swing, to conserve energy, to rely on the shield for protection and positioning, and to trust that the men beside him would do the same. The first moments of contact were often the most overwhelming. The noise reached its peak, and the sense of order was threatened by the reality of collision. Yet the structure of the Roman formation provided a framework that helped maintain cohesion even under pressure, allowing the soldier to focus on immediate tasks rather than the broader chaos. He would quickly learn that battle was not a continuous charge, but a series of controlled movements, advances and pauses, pressure applied and resisted. Officers moved behind the lines to maintain discipline, reinforce commands, and ensure that gaps did not form. Fatigue would begin to set in early, as the physical demands of holding position, pushing against the enemy, and remaining alert took their toll. The soldier would rely on the rotation of ranks, a system that allowed those in the front line to step back briefly while others took their place, maintaining the integrity of the formation while providing moments of relief. Throughout the engagement, the soldier's awareness would be limited to his immediate surroundings. The broader outcome of the battle remained unclear. His focus narrowed to survival and the execution of orders, and the sense of time became distorted by the intensity of the experience. Communication remained structured, with signals and commands passed along the line, ensuring that the unit acted as a cohesive whole rather than a collection of individuals. This organization often provided a psychological anchor for the new soldier, reinforcing the idea that he was part of something larger and more controlled than the apparent disorder of combat. As the battle progressed, the soldier would begin to adapt. His initial fear gave way to a more measured response, shaped by repetition and the need to function effectively within the formation. He observed the behavior of more experienced soldiers around him, learning through observation as much as through prior training. The outcome of the engagement depended on many factors beyond his control, including the strength and tactics of the opposing force, the terrain, and the decisions of commanders. But his role remained consistent: to hold the line, to advance when ordered, and to maintain discipline under pressure. When the enemy began to falter, the shift in momentum would become perceptible even at the level of the individual soldier. The resistance in front of him weakened, and the coordinated push of his own line gained ground. The transition from defensive engagement to pursuit could occur, though even this phase required control to prevent the breakdown of formation. For the first-time soldier, the end of the battle would not bring immediate clarity. The cessation of combat often left a lingering sense of tension, the body still reacting to the stress of the experience. The realization of survival emerged gradually. He would remain with his unit, awaiting further orders, as the army regrouped, assessed the situation, and began the process of consolidation. The aftermath involved practical tasks rather than reflection, securing the area, assisting the wounded, and re-establishing order within the camp. All of this reinforced the structured nature of Roman military life, even after the intensity of battle. Over time, the memory of the first engagement would become a reference point, shaping the soldier's understanding of combat and his role within the army, transforming initial uncertainty into experience that would inform future actions. The transition from recruit to seasoned soldier did not occur in a single moment. The first battle marked a significant step in that process, providing a direct encounter with the realities of warfare and the effectiveness of the systems designed to manage it. Through discipline, training, and collective action, the Roman army sought to reduce the unpredictability of battle. For the individual soldier, this framework offered both guidance and protection, enabling him to navigate an experience that was inherently uncertain and demanding. In the end, what defined his first battle was not a single dramatic moment, but the accumulation of controlled actions, the reliance on structure, and the gradual adaptation to conditions that tested both physical endurance and mental resilience. It left him changed, not by spectacle, but by the sustained effort of functioning within one of the most organized military systems of the ancient world. In the period that followed, the soldier's experience did not end with the silence of the battlefield, but continued within the steady rhythm of the army's routines. As the camp settled once more into its ordered structure, he found that the same discipline which had carried him through the battle now shaped his actions in its aftermath, guiding him through familiar tasks that no longer felt abstract, but directly connected to survival and effectiveness. The cleaning of weapons, the repair of damaged equipment, and the reorganization of supplies became more than routine duties, they were extensions of the same system that had sustained him in combat. Each action reinforced the understanding that readiness was constant, not temporary, and that the boundary between preparation and engagement was far less defined than he had once believed. Within this environment, the soldier began to recognize that the army did not pause to reflect, but moved forward with continuity, maintaining its structure regardless of circumstance. As he stood again within the formation in the days that followed, the alignment of shields and the measured spacing between ranks no longer felt unfamiliar or imposed. Instead, they carried a sense of purpose grounded in experience. The commands of officers, once followed with a mixture of uncertainty and obligation, were now understood as practical necessities, their clarity shaped by what he had already endured. This shift did not remove the demands of discipline, but it altered his relationship to them, making his responses more immediate and assured. The memory of his first battle remained present, not as a singular moment of intensity, but as a reference that informed each subsequent action. It shaped the way he observed his surroundings, the way he listened for commands, and the way he moved within the formation. What had once required conscious effort gradually became instinctive, integrated into his behavior through repetition and experience. In this way, the soldier's first battle did not stand as an isolated event, but as the beginning of a continuous process. It marked the point at which training and reality converged, and from that point forward, his role within the army became defined not by anticipation, but by participation. Through this ongoing cycle of discipline, action, and adaptation, he became part of a system that relied not on individual distinction, but on the consistent, collective execution of every soldier within its ranks. Over time, this continuity shaped not only the soldier's actions, but his perception of what it meant to serve within the army. The uncertainty that had once defined his earliest experience did not disappear entirely, but it was gradually replaced by a structured awareness, an understanding that each moment, whether in preparation, movement, or engagement, was part of a larger system that functioned through consistency rather than reaction. Within this framework, the soldier no longer viewed himself as an individual facing isolated events, but as a component of an organized force, where effectiveness depended on the steady execution of established methods. As new marches began and unfamiliar terrain once again came into view, the patterns of movement and preparation repeated with quiet precision. The arrangement of camps, the distribution of duties, and the formation of ranks followed the same disciplined approach, reinforcing the sense that each stage of military life was interconnected. For the soldier, this repetition did not produce monotony, but clarity. It allowed him to anticipate, to prepare, and to act with a level of confidence that had been absent before his first encounter with battle. In this way, the experience of that initial engagement extended beyond its immediate circumstances, becoming embedded in the soldier's ongoing development. It informed his decisions, shaped his responses, and reinforced his reliance on the structure that surrounded him. What had once been a test of endurance and control became, over time, a foundation upon which his role was built. And within that role, defined by discipline and collective action, the soldier continued forward, no longer defined by the uncertainty of his first battle, but by his ability to function within the enduring system that had carried him through it.